Sup YouTube, Fantar here to give my predictions for UFC 205 Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. Before I get into that, apparently Ronda Rousey is back for UFC 207 and it's been a long time. Like, this news just came out today. She's going to be fighting Amanda Nunes. Now, whether or not I think Ronda should get the fight, if you base it off of fight merit and that she just got destroyed by Holly Holmes, then you probably don't. I don't think she deserves a title shot right away. But it's because how big of a money draw she is and how long she defended her title. And she just brings in the big bucks and it'd be a good comeback story for her. Then yeah, I guess in that phase of the matter, she probably does deserve a title shot. And if you look at the actions of the UFC, if you go by how they handle their things, then yeah, she definitely does deserve to get her belt back because of other past champions, except for Jose Aldo, who don't get a chance at fighting for the belt again when it comes to losing or getting destroyed by their opponent. But anyway, whether or not I think she's going to win or not, that's another video for another day. So here we got Eddie Alvarez versus Conor McGregor. Now, when it comes to the striking aspect, let's jump right into that. I think you have to give the edge to Conor McGregor just based off of his technique, his stance, and the way how good he looked early on against Nate Diaz when it came to counterpunching, and his leg kicks. He added that to his arsenal. Good job for him. Eddie Alvarez, I think, might have maybe a little more power because he's naturally a bigger lightweight. But Conor McGregor might be more precise, and we know his saying, precision beats power, timing beats speed, all that stuff. And the thing is that you have to take into account is that Eddie Alvarez is now working with Mark Henry, who is like a renowned boxing coach for the MMA community. And we're going to see how much of an improvement he can make with Mark Henry. And it's all about which fighter can improve, how much fight, because, everyone hears about, your last fight is the one that's important. That's the only one anyone cares about. But it's all about which fighter can evolve in time for the next upcoming bout. And I think Eddie Alvarez, he will improve his boxing. He already does have good boxing, but I hope it will be enough to face Conor McGregor. But as of now, we have to give the edge to Conor McGregor in the striking department just because of how clean his technique is in the ongoing early parts of the round. So that part, I'll have to give it to Conor. Eddie Alvarez has got a chin, though, and he's got some crazy power. And it's a toss-up on who can knock who out if they catch each other on the chin. Who can be more evasive, who can not allow the chin to be touched by which opponent. And I think Conor McGregor would have an easier time connecting with Eddie Alvarez's chin if he tries to strike with Conor. Now, as far as the ground game goes, you have to give it to Eddie Alvarez. He's got really good grappling, great wrestling. Conor got a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but his weakness has always been more like a chink in the armor is his ground game. That's where he struggles with. We've seen him been taken down by Nate Diaz in the first fight. Although he did improve it against Nate Diaz in the second fight, he didn't get taken down until the last part of the fifth round. So he is susceptible to the takedown. Now, another thing about Conor is where you have to talk about the ground game is, can he defend a takedown against Eddie Alvarez? And I personally don't think he can. I don't think his takedown defense is up to par yet because even though he defended against Nate Diaz is not known for his wrestling. Eddie Alvarez has better wrestling and he's more aggressive when it comes to the takedown. He can switch up the game plan. Now, for grappling, Eddie Alvarez over Conor McGregor, probably by a wider margin than it is for the striking. Now, in order for who becomes more successful in this fight, it all depends on what order Eddie Alvarez wants to take his game plan. Because we know what Conor wants to do. He wants to stand up and he wants to knock you out. I don't see him trying to take down Eddie Alvarez. There's no way that's going to happen. I think that'd be extremely stupid. But Conor wants to counter-strike. He wants to track down Eddie Alvarez's chin. He wants to use his leg kicks, his powerful left hand, and he wants to take his head off. He wants to dust him in the first round. Now, Eddie, he can have more ways to win this fight, but it all depends on what order he goes about. In my opinion, I think for Eddie, in order for him to win, his highest chance of winning would be if he were to use his wrestling and the ground game in the first round and a half or 2 rounds and wear down Conor by taking him down and using his ground and pound. Because when we saw Conor fight against Nate Diaz, even though he was able to last the 5 rounds, there was a point in time where it looked like he might have lost some gas. In like the fourth round, he was able to get a second win. But he did look like he did tire out. And I think that if Eddie Alvarez can take advantage of that and use his grappling game to overwhelm Conor in like the first 2 rounds, and then possibly get Conor maybe a little more winded, I think he would have a much stronger chance at beating him in the striking game. Now, whether or not Eddie does that, that's a whole different ballgame. Sometimes a fighter can let a pride get to him, and he might want to feel like he wants to strike with him to prove a point, or to show that Mark Henry has improved his striking with the boxing. Because if you go by with Eddie Alvarez talks, he talks like as if Conor's his easiest fight, but if he tries to strike with him to prove a point, kind of like when Jose Aldo kind of like ran in and tried to strike with Conor going wildly, he got KO'd badly. I think you're kind of playing with fire, striking with Conor McGregor early in the rounds, because that is when Conor is at his strongest. When he fought Nate Diaz and made him look like a fool in the first 2 rounds in the striking game, I expected that for him to be in his strongest in the first couple rounds. But the thing is that Nate Diaz has such a good chin. I'm not so sure if Eddie Alvarez's chin is as good as Nate's. I think Eddie Alvarez is a better fighter overall than Nate Diaz, but one thing that Nate has is his chin and that crazy cardio. Eddie has it too, but if he tries to strike with Conor in the first 2 rounds and he gets clipped, I think that will make this fight a lot more into Conor's favor. Now, if Eddie were to use the wrestling and his jiu-jitsu and try to take down Conor and probably wear him out, and then maybe in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, try to use his striking, try to use leg kicks, his improved boxing, that's where I think Eddie can have a more successful time when it comes to beating Conor. Whether or not he does that, I think that will be a huge part of the fight. If Eddie doesn't try to use his wrestling and he doesn't try to be smart about this, he'll probably get KO'd or he'll probably lose. And that's all what it comes down to in this fight, who can implement their game plan better. Now, whether or not I think he'll do that, I think he will. I think he will do that. I think he'll look at Conor's past fights and he'll see how strong he is in the first 2 rounds. And Mark Henry, who's great when it comes to game plans, he's going to use that, and he's going to have Eddie use that game plan. Even though it didn't look so exciting against someone like Anthony Pettis, but the thing is with Anthony Pettis is that his ground game is miles ahead of Conor McGregor's. So I think that if they use that game plan, this could be Eddie Alvarez's fight. Now, when it comes to Conor, he's just got to defend the takedown. If he defends that, I think this fight is his, because I give the chance of Conor outstriking him, especially in the early rounds and throughout the fight, if Eddie Alvarez cannot take him down, because then he'll make Eddie Alvarez one-dimensional. And when you make it one-dimension, even though Conor's also a little one-dimensional, that dimension is pretty damn fucking strong. So when it comes to this prediction, well, first off, who do I want to win? I want Alvarez to win because I'm a little biased towards Alvarez because I'm a little upset that Conor didn't have to relinquish his featherweight title, because I really wanted to see him fight Jose Aldo. And I think it's ridiculous that just coming off a win against Nate Diaz, only 1 win, who's in the top 5, but hasn't beaten anyone else who was ahead of him, is getting a title shot here, and he's not relinquishing his featherweight belt. So even though I'm a little biased towards Eddie Alvarez, I'm trying my best to look at the strategic part of the fight and the technique, but I want Alvarez to win. Who do I think is going to win? I'll go Eddie Alvarez 5-round decision. With it being a very tough fight, though. This is going to be a war. He's going to get clipped a couple times, and we'll see how much Conor McGregor defends that takedown, and we'll see if Eddie Alvarez tries to be smart about this fight. And hopefully he will, because I want Eddie to win. But I think he will do this, and I think Conor's going to struggle, and then maybe he'll go back down to featherweight, or apparently he's got some announcement, a possibility of retiring. We'll see what happens there. Hope you guys like the review. Who do you think is going to win this fight? And anyone let me know down in the comment section below if you can find this video. Fantard out.